Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Worcester City Council held by Zoom video conferencing and YouTube on this Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. It's being held on this day because of President's Day yesterday. It is after 7:30 p.m. and our next meeting will be Monday, March 1st, 2021. If you would, Mr. Paulo, please call the roll.
Mr. Ansel,
Here.
Mr. Bostancic,
Here.
Mr. Cavan. Where's he at? Where is Mr. Cavan? Did we start without him?
We did.
We did.
He's waiting. Hold on.
I'll go down the list. Mr. Myers,
Here.
Mr. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Silvestri,
On him too. Here we go. He just popped in.
okay. Ms. Warden,
Here.
Chris Mark.
okay, we got Mark yet?
Yes.
Mr.
Hi.
Cavan, are you here for the meeting?
Yes.
Roll, okay.
And Mr. Silvestri's popped on the
Mr.
screen.
Silvestri, are you now at the meeting?
I am here.
All
Thank you.
right.
All right, everyone is present and accounted for on this post snowy evening. I don't know about some of you. I spent a good portion of the morning pushing snow, so I'm a little tired because I was using muscles I don't normally use. So please bear with me if I fade off towards the end of this meeting. And we do have a quorum, as I said, and there isn't a change per se to the agenda, but just for everyone's notes that the liquor petition will be moved up to item 4 instead of being stuck under item 5. So other than that, the agenda will remain as presented. And as we typically do, I would ask at this time for you to stand and join the council members and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, one and all. Appreciate it. We did not have a meeting in February, so the minutes being approved are the minutes of the January 19th, 2021 meeting. So I would appreciate a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Silvestri to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ansel. All those in favor of approving the minutes of January 19th, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The minutes of January 19, 2021 have been approved. That brings communications from the mayor and the administration, and mayor, very informative and enriching state of the city address. It's amazing how much was accomplished in 2020 despite the impediment of COVID-19. And I'm glad you were able to reinforce that, and hopefully it brought to the attention of those that were watching, because I know council and your administration knows what a vibrant and alive city we have, even during a pandemic, which is quite a remarkable story. So I appreciate you taking the time, and it was a nice PowerPoint presentation, and really appreciate your remarks. So I'll turn the meeting over to you now, Your Honor.
Well, I have really very little to say after all of that, other than you're right. It actually is an honor and a real privilege to be able to give that report each year, just because so many things happen in our community each year, and it's so full of wonderful people that are all trying to pull the rope the same direction, and it shows in our community. So it's really a privilege to get a chance to tell the story. So, but other than that, I think I hit about on every subject I needed to tonight, and I'll turn it back over to you, President Bidendijk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to petitions, and we do have a petition for a liquor, new liquor license. It's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Otiglo LLC, DBA Grigio Wine and Cocktail Bar. So if you wouldn't mind reading that, Mr. Paulo, we can then decide how we're going to proceed.
The Ohio Division of Liquor Control sent an application for a D5L permit class for Grigio LLC, doing business as Grigio Wine and Cocktail Bar, 211 South Market Street, Wooster, Ohio, 44691.
All right, as you know, with any liquor license petition, we can request a hearing here in the county seat, which is of course Worcester, hearing down in Columbus, or we can waive having the hearing. I'll entertain a motion on your.
Motion to waive hearing, Mr. President.
Motion to waive hearing by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Myers.
Second by Mr. Myers. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Paulo, please call the roll on the motion to waive the hearing.
Mr. Ansel,
Yes.
Mr. Bostancic,
Yes.
Mr. Cavan,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes.
Mr. Silvestri,
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Well, the motion to waive the hearing has been approved, and if you would, as you have done so many times in the past, Mr. Powell, please let the Department of Liquor Control that we waive the hearing on this petition. We have no unfinished business, so that I jumped ahead because my notes were scribbling. We have no committee reports, but I do need to remind everyone that we'll have a public hearing on March 1st with regard to the Highland rezoning and annexation. So that's scheduled for March 1st. And I assume, Mr. Sanders, you will be conducting that since you're chairman of the Law and Ordinance Committee. So, okay, now we can move down to item 6, unfinished business, which is none. So we'll roll right into new business. And speaking of the chairman of Law and Ordinance Committee, Mr. Sanders will be presenting the ordinance number 2021-05. However, Mr. Paulo, before I can turn it over to Mr. Sanders, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2021-05. An ordinance amending chapter 1351, minimum housing standards and property maintenance code of the codified ordinances of the city of Worcester, Ohio to update the code.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours, sir. And it is slated for 3 readings.
Mr. Sanders, if I may interrupt for just a moment, I'm very sorry. The one thing we needed to say is that we're experiencing, there's a problem with YouTube, so comments are disabled. We saw that in our previous meeting right before this. So I just wanted to tell anyone who's watching, if you do want to make a comment or have a question that we would normally take on one of the agenda items, please email me at jscavelli@worcesterOH.com. Again, that's jscavelli@worcesterOH.com, spelled JSCAV as in Victory, ELLI @worcesterOH.com. I will monitor those, and I will ask President Bidendijk if I can address them near the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. I think sometimes when we have a holiday, or in this case, a snow day, there are so many people on the internet. Sometimes it's even though it's a modern convenience, it's sometimes acts creaky and cranky like an old dial-up modem. So we'll make sure your comments get forwarded on. So, Mr. Sanders, I now turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we have this evening in front of us is our current international property and maintenance code that's being utilized by the city is the 2012 edition, and the request is to accept the 2018 version of the international property maintenance code as the city adopted property maintenance code. In is accepting and adopting the 2018, it will bring these new codes into alignment with both building and fire codes that also are updated periodically. And it's really, it's fairly straightforward in terms of we really need to do this in order to be able to properly continue to monitor our property maintenance standards for the community. And with that, I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place this on third and final reading.
All right, Mr. Sanders has made a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ansel. Mr. Paula, would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
You're muted, Mr. Cavan.
give me a thumbs up.
Yes. Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Bastancik.
Yes.
Okay, the rules have been suspended. I look to you, Mr. Sanders, for yet another motion.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Smith.
Okay, I heard Mr. Silvestri, or I heard and saw his hand simultaneously. So Mr. Silvestri seconded it. Any discussion, questions?
I would have one for Mr. Monet. Good evening. Have you noticed anything in there that we're not already doing that may be something that is coming our way that might be new that we're not already doing?
That's an excellent question, Mark. We did a pretty comprehensive review. It took us most of the year in comparing the 2012 and 2018 because we didn't want to inadvertently adopt something and then it would impact every structure in Worcester because the property maintenance code applies to every existing building in Worcester, whether it's residential or commercial. So it sort of picks up where the building code leaves a gap because the building code only applies if you're altering a building or putting an addition on or building something new, where the property maintenance code is going to apply to everything all the time. And it's been around for a little while, and so there really aren't any significant changes. There were a few little tweaks on some definitions for clarity, but nothing that is going to cause any sort of unintended consequence of adopting it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Anything else? Seeing none, Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
and Bastancik.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-05 passes. We'll look at ordinance number 2021-06. This will again be presented by Mr. Sanders. It is slated for 3 readings. Before we get back to you, Mr. Sanders, again, Ms. DiPaolo, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance accepting application for the annexation of territory located on West Highland Avenue and contiguous to the corporation limits. Matthew A. Long, Esquire, agent for petitioner Stephanie Campbell.
And I will note that Mr. Long is present with us this evening. So, Mr. Sanders, I will yield the floor to you again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is a request for annexation into the city for the 2.3893 West Highland Avenue. At this particular point in time, in light of the fact we will be having a public hearing related to both this and another piece of legislation here later, we will just leave this on first reading this evening, but I will ask Mr. Long if he has any comments pertaining to this if he's would like to share. We would love to hear from him.
Thanks, and I'll keep my comments briefly since this is the 3rd time this has been back to council and its history over the last year. I believe council first saw this in a pre-annexation agreement to connect utilities, and then subsequently, as you know, we have to come to city council before starting the annexation process to confirm that the city will provide utilities if annexed. And now, after a long road, we're at the final stage of annexing the property into the city of Worcester once it's been passed by council, and then subsequently making sure that it's properly zoned. So certainly happy to welcome any questions that members of council may have.
I would suggest this evening that in light of the fact that we will be having a public hearing on this on March 1st, we can have further questions and discussions at that particular point in time, or when we do the second reading on this legislation on the same date.
Okay, we'll consider 2021-06 as having its first reading. And thank you, Mr. Long, for refreshing our recollection as to how we got here to this point. So we have a good evening. Let's turn our attention to ordinance number 2021-07. This will be Mr. Sanders' presentation, which he alluded to already. It is slated for 3 readings. Ms. DiPaolo, again, would you please read the title of this ordinance?
Ordinance number 2021-07, an ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the city of Worcester, Ohio, so as to amend the zoning map at a certain parcel at 903 West Highland Avenue.
All right, Mr. Sanders, once again, I yield the floor to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Beitendijk. Again, yes, this the second part, if you will. This is a standalone piece of legislation, but the second part to the previous request for annexation, along with the request for annexation, the applicant is also requesting a change in zoning. Normally, when we would accept a piece of property into the city, it would come in as R1, which would be suburban single-family residential. In this case, the applicant is requesting that we would go to R2, which is single-family residential as well, but our single-family is single-family residential versus suburban single-family residential. Again, in light of the fact that we will be having a public hearing on this on March 1st, I would suggest that we pretty much take this as the first reading this evening, and we can have further discussion after that public hearing on March 1st when we read this legislation for the second time.
Well, that sounds like a plan, and seeing no hue and outcry from the rest of council members, we'll consider ordinance number 2021-07 as having its first reading. And you will be presenting the next one, Mr. Sanders, ordinance number 2021-08. And before I get back to you, I will ask Mr. Paulo to again read this ordinance title.
Ordinance number 2021-08, an ordinance to approve and adopt current replacement pages to the codified ordinances and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours, and it is slated for 3 readings.
Again, thank you, Mr. President. As it comes in front of our desk from time to time, we have various changes that we need to apply to our city ordinances that are driven from changes usually in the Ohio Revised Code. In this particular case, that's exactly the situation that's occurred. We have 3 items in the traffic code section and 1 item in the general offenses code. What we have is a clarification in the traffic code, section 331.43, that basically what the change in the state regulations are is it expands definitions for earphones and earplugs, but then also adds an exception for hearing protection while operating a motorcycle. And again, these are changes that are coming to us from the Ohio Revised Code that we just need to come into line with. The second item is section 335.09, which is a display of license plates or validation stickers and temporary license placard, which at this point now the state is saying that they are okay with those being displayed in the rear of the vehicle with a little more clarity than what they had previously. The third item is 335.091, which is operating without dealer or manufacturer license plates. And again, this adds a new section regulating operating a manufacturer or dealer vehicle without a license plate or placards. And the last item is a general offenses code, which is 505.04, which is labeled abandoning animals. And what the state has done is they've amended the update penalty wording. And all we're doing is just going to match the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Revised Code reference. And in light of the fact that these are items that we will need to comply with as quickly as possible, I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place this on 3rd and final reading.
All right, Mr. Sanders has moved to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ansel. Mr. Paul, would you please call the roll on the suspension of the rules?
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
yes,
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Costancic.
Yes.
The motion to suspend the rules passes. Mr. Myers, I turn to you again.
Me, Mr. Sanders?
Yes, Mr. Sanders, I'm sorry. I told you I would be fading here as the meeting continued.
I would motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by
I'll second
Mr.
it since you've already
Sanders
called on me. Second.
and second by Mr. Myers. Thank you, Mr. Myers. Any discussion? I can't believe we're doing this again. I know we did it a year ago, and I can't believe a year has gone by so quickly, despite the fact we've been sheltering in place for almost a year.
I'd like to thank Mr. Scavelli for his Cliff Note version summary of these Ohio Revised Code changes today. That was very helpful, John. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing nothing further, Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bastancik.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-08 passes. That will cause us to look at ordinance number 2021-09. Ms. Warden will give Mr. Sanders a brief rest as she will be presenting this ordinance. It's slated for 3 readings. And before I get to you, Ms. Warden, I'll ask Mr. Paulo to please read the title.
Ordinance number 2021-09. An ordinance authorizing the city of Worcester to accept a transfer of land from the Worcester City School District.
Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Biden. So Mayor Brenneman addressed this issue as goal number 7 during tonight's State of the City presentation. But just to reiterate, this is an exciting ordinance and it creates an opportunity for the city to alleviate a significant and growing traffic problem right basically in front of Worcester High School and the football stadium and Alice Noble Ice Arena in that general area. Worcester City Schools have offered up to donate or basically give the city 2 narrow slices of land at the corners of Old Man and Oak Hill Roads, which will allow the city to improve the intersection by widening the lanes and eventually constructing a roundabout. So if this is approved, the land transfer will be a proactive and cost-saving step to provide the needed right-of-way for this construction. There are no immediate plans, according to Mr. Kobelarsik, for this construction, but the city is tentatively looking to complete the project in the next couple of years. I see no reason why the city wouldn't accept this generous gift from the school district. And so I move to suspend the rules this evening and place this ordinance on 3rd and final reading.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules by Ms. Warden. I saw Mr. Ansel with his hand up to second the motion to suspend. the rules.
Absolutely.
Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bastancik,
Yes.
and Myers.
Yes.
Okay, the rules are suspended. I look to you again, Ms. Warden.
I move to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Warden. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Myers.
Second by Mr. Myers. Any discussion? It seems like a no-brainer that we would want this property so we could improve that intersection, and especially anyone that has children headed to the high school, they'll be happy to have this thing maybe completed before they're done. Seeing nothing further in terms of discussion, if you would, Mr. Paulo, please call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bastancik,
Yes.
and Myers.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-09 passes. Our last piece of legislation and tonight's swan song by Mr. Sanders, who I'll get to you in a second as Mr. Paulo reads the last piece of legislation, ordinance number 2021-10.
Ordinance number 2021-10. An ordinance amending chapter 1107.04 annexation, 1109.02 explanation of the table of permitted uses, and 1135.02 general definitions of the codified ordinances of the city of Worcester, Ohio, to correct a typographical error in the code.
Okay, Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours. I see it's slated for 3 readings.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the The law director, law department of the city of Worcester started looking into actually this piece of annexation request that we have that we'll be discussing further on March 1st. It was realized that somewhere along the line, we have three pieces of our city ordinances that have a section referencing, or we have a reference back to a section called 0. We don't have a section 0 in our codified ordinances. So somewhere along the way, there was probably a number that was supposed to go in there. It didn't get put in, and it's been this way for a while. So what we're doing this evening is the three sections, 1107.04, which is annexation, 1109.02, the explanation of the table of permitted uses, and then also the 1135.02 of general definitions. At this point, instead of referencing section 0, we'll reference section 1105.03, which is the correct section that it is supposed to be referencing. And I won't go through the 3.5 pages of 1105.03, but at this point it goes through the clarification and process that all three of these pieces of three pieces of our codified ordinance discuss. This 1105.03 is kind of the clarification of those items. And I guess at this point, if there's any specific questions on this, I would direct that to Mr. Scavelli, but it seems to be a pretty simple situation at hand. And with that, I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place this on third and final reading this evening.
Okay, motion by Mr. Sanders to suspend the
Second.
rules. Is there a second? Who was that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ansel. Ms. DiPaolo, would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Sorry, yes.
yeah. Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bostancic,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
and Sanders.
Yes,
The rules have been suspended. Mr. Sanders?
I would motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Any questions? It seems like we just forgot some digits, which can be fatal when you're doing code for rocket launches, and could be fatal when it's code for our zoning code. So it's good to get these fixed. Good catch there, Mr. Scavelli.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing further, Mr. Paula, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bostancic,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
and Sanders.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-10 passes, brings us to miscellaneous. And I have to add that it's nice to see that Mr. Dordia gets his children involved in city council matters. All of a sudden, I saw he had two hands coming out on either side of his head.
Right here.
I wonder where they get that orneriness. It must be a result of Nikki, huh? Okay, we'll start out with Miss Warden.
I have nothing of any importance to add tonight. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bostancic,
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Mr. Silvestri.
Really enjoyed the State of the City address, Mr. Mayor. Thank you again. I know that's a lot of prioritization and a lot of distilling of information. Great job, and thanks again so much.
Mr. Cavan,
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders, if you have any voice left.
I do. I just wanted to thank the mayor as well for the state of the city. I had the opportunity to listen to it this evening and then also listen to it the other day at Kiwanis. And yeah, this was a little longer this evening, but it was good information. Appreciate the city putting that together for all of us to glean all this new information.
Thank you. Mr. Ansel?
Yes, how fortunate we are as a city to have the positive momentum, in spite of the setbacks presented to us in light of the COVID-19 epidemic. So fortunate, absolutely indeed. And then also I want to compliment Mr. Sanders. The Laws and Ordinances Committee has a lot of heavy lifting this time of year, updating all the Ohio revised codes and a lot of the statutory items. So Councilman Sanders, great job. Thank you for tonight.
And Mr. Myers, we'll give you the last word this evening.
Thank you, President Beitendijk. I just wanted to say I too got to hear the mayor's presentation at Kiwanis, and I will say that I think tonight's went better. So, kudos. Well done. All the information well presented, Mayor. Thank you very much for your help. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, but I'm going to suggest an idea that one of our local citizens had was with these community meetings that we were having. I believe, Mr. Beitendijk, did you do the first one, I think, earlier this month?
Yes, Mr. Sanders and Mr. Montgomery and I last Wednesday.
All right. The suggestion that came from a community member was that during miscellaneous, whichever council person participated in that might give a brief review. And I'm not going to put anybody on the spot tonight, but maybe going forward, we could include that as part of our miscellaneous at the end, is to bring up any pertinent topics that was brought up during that meeting here at the council meeting for everybody else to participate. So that's all I have.
All right. And seeing nothing else, Mr. Ansel, I see.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. And is there a second?
Second.
Second,
Third.
Mr. Cavan, all in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye. Good night,
Okay,
everyone.
we're adjourned.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Yep, see you.
Thank you.
Hey, Joel, you want to stay on for a second?
I think he's gone already.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
lost him.
Oh, I will talk to him tomorrow.